Welcome to Stay Sparked. On this show, we explore how to stay inspired in the modern world through the most profound lessons from Burning Man, relationships, entrepreneurship, psychedelics, spirituality, travel, and more.
On today's episode, we're going to get wonderfully weird.
We talk about some of our own unique expressions in the world and how we curb some of our judgment of other people's weirdness in the world.
Talk about how important it is to listen to our inner truth and let our weirdness shine, even when the world's trying to hold you back.
Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Stay Sparked. We are three friends who have been sharing conversations and lighting each other up for over a decade. And now we like to have those conversations public and share them with you. If you are liking these conversations, we hope that you will tell your friends and leave us a 5-star review like this one from San Diego, who said the hosts are both spiritual and practical, but most of all, they are fun to listen to. They share their life stories and lessons learned in a way that is humble and curious, not preachy. And they center on being grateful for it all, and they're not afraid to laugh at themselves. Thank you, San Diego. Please leave us more fun reviews like that. How can we not laugh at ourselves? Have you seen my other two hosts?
How dare you?
I am Halcyon.
And I'm Betsy.
And I am JANUS.
And we like to start these broadcasts with a little bit of gratitude. Betsy, would you share a little gratitude with us?
Yes, I am so grateful today, every day, but especially today because I am filled up from 4 days with some dear friends, soul family reunion. And my biggest gratitude is for all the littles. It's been so wonderful to get to spend time with these young little people that are part of our growing family. So I'm really, really grateful for all the little people in our community.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was at the same gathering, and yeah, have a similar gratitude. Those little people are great. I really got to connect with them. That was a lot of fun. My particular gratitude, though, is for the shelter that my partner and I ended up staying in. I acquired an iDome from idomeshelters.com. And this thing was amazing. It's a hexagonal dome, went up in just like 8 minutes, I think. And it was fit a queen size bed in it. It was awesome. It was great. Got to stargaze. It was very comfortable for my partner and I. And it's one of the best purchases I've made in a long time. So yeah, an iDome. Check it out, people.
Nice. I am grateful this week for this practice of shared gratitude that I've been doing, and I keep inviting listeners to come join me. This weekend, someone shared, it was a gentleman who is stuck in bed in his home and has been for a very long time. And he shared about a neighbor that heard him mention that he liked tamales. And so the neighbor brought him homemade tamales. And the intense gratitude that he felt was so moving. And it was such a beautiful reminder that how much we can affect people with little gestures. Like we think that we need to, solve world hunger, but sometimes bringing food to a neighbor that is lonely can dramatically change the world. And I'm just super grateful for those kind of examples.
Amazing.
And I'm also grateful for today's topic. Today, we're going to be talking about being weird.
Weird.
And
let's be weird. Let's get weird.
Yeah, we're going to get weird.
It's time to get weird. So this was inspired. I had a little 11-second video go viral last week where I basically said, when people call me weird, my response is, oh, thank you for noticing. I work so hard at it. And it hit a nerve with people. And the responses, both positive and negative, have really gotten the juices thinking about being weird and what does that mean, and when does it feel good, when does it feel bad. And I'm gonna make an assumption that we all self-identify as weird. And so would Betsy, would you share something weird about you?
Yes. Yeah, I definitely feel weird. There's been a lot of times in my life where I'm like, oh wow, I really don't fit in. I'm so different. I feel so weird. I don't know how I'm like, yeah, how am I even here? Okay, so I sometimes feel really weird when I'm the only person on the beach or in nature that I'm like dancing full out. So I really love dancing. It's such a huge part of my mental health, my physical health, and I've gotten to a place where I just embrace being that weird girl on the beach, dancing her butt off. I used to really get shy around doing that. I really wanted to do it, and then I would do it, and then I could see somebody walking kind of down the beach towards me, that I would stop because I didn't want to be perceived as weird or judged. And I just wouldn't do it. And then I realized, well, it doesn't really matter what other people think. And now I have no shame about being that weird girl on the beach who is just like rolling around in the waves, doing yoga, dancing, playing, a full adult as acting like a child that might be perceived as weird. And I love being weird in that way.
See, I want to challenge you in that statement that it doesn't matter, because it matters in such a wonderful way. Because I think that when we see someone dancing like that, it is this reminder that you're allowed to do that. You know, I think everybody experiences that voice that you used to have, which is being embarrassed. What are people going to think? What are people going to think? And most of us are so limited by that, myself included, that when we see somebody shining and dancing and allowing the world to see their weird, it's a little bit of a liberation. It's like, oh my gosh, they can do that. They can do that.
Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes people are going to be like making up stories around it. Like, that's awesome. Oh, cool. She's totally expressed. And some people might make up other stories around that. Is really weird. I can't believe that person's doing that. And I love the saying, is it's none of my business what other people think.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I mean, there's a kind of a lot to unpack just with that, because it's the gamut of reactions that somebody would have to that is large, where somebody is like, oh, that's, yeah, you're allowed to do that. And then it's like, well, why are we allowed to do that? Should we be allowed to do that? Why? Who wants to see that? And then it reminds people, yes, that is allowed. And then it can almost like it's you know, the whole world is like it reflects us back to ourselves. So when somebody sees somebody, certain people see somebody dancing with wild abandon on the beach, it could also potentially remind them that, yeah, I've wanted to do that, but I haven't done that. So it kind of reminds them of their own, or it could potentially remind them of their own repression, and whether that's self-repression or societal repression. So it, you know, expressing ourselves in these being our authentic weird selves brings up a lot for a lot of people. It could potentially bring up a lot. So there's much to unpack with that.
Yeah, I had a experience after my first couple of years at Burning Man in 98, 99, and then I think in about 2000, I was lamenting to my partner at the time that I wish I could wear fur pants, year round, because I have so much more fun when I'm wearing fur pants. And they looked at me and they're like, and the reason you don't is because, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm afraid of judgment. I'm afraid of people thinking I'm weird. And that's not a good enough reason if it's really going to bring me joy. And so I started actively wearing fur pants when I went out in downtown and to places where it was not considered acceptable. And the reactions, many people were like, right on, woo, yeah, because they're feeling that little bit of like, oh, wait, cool, this is a little bit of permission slip. And then there were definitely people who got triggered and would lash out and would attack. And it's a common one would be, homophobic responses. And I really thought of it as like, this is my activism. This is there is an art to inviting these responses. But I had another part of that was that a good friend of mine said, I don't want to go out with you anymore when you do this, because I know that you are welcoming this, but it is so hard for me to witness people being hurtful and mean to you, that I don't have the strength to be in the presence of that. And I was like, oh, damn.
Ooh.
But, yeah.
I was like,
You kept going.
Yeah.
Exactly. The first time I ever saw you, I was driving down the street of San Diego and I saw this guy with a pink furry bike and pink hair and this beautiful woman who is also dressed in pink. And it was like, whoa, who are those people? they are so magical and wonderful and weird. And I remember that was the first moment I met you. It really drew me to you. And who would have thought, like 15 years later, here we are. So there's a lot of positive things that can come out of it, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that maybe drove by you that day and, had their own internal, crunch inside that was really challenging to witness. So thank you for being
Yeah,
willing to
it
be
was.
one of the outwardly expressed weirdos.
It's part of that. I feel this. With great opportunity is great responsibility, and that by being exposed to communities where we were allowed to be weird and we're allowed to radically self-express, that it would be unfair. It would be almost cowardly to hide that from the rest of the world because I'm afraid of what the responses would be. So that's why I've had, not currently, but had pink hair for most of the last 20 years, and why I ride my pink fur Burning Man bike year round, to kind of confront that. And I think that I often think of the hair and the overt pinkness is kind of like, or any type of visible overt weirdness is like a moat where you're repelling people that don't want it to have anything, that aren't ready for it, and you invite people in. So the number of people like you, Betsy, they're like, that's interesting, we're connected. And the people that are like, what the hell, that person is not going to approach me and talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something that
Yeah.
also that the negative response, because I've given it a lot of thought as people drive by in a truck and yell something, and it's almost always a truck, not always, but generally it's a truck when somebody yells something. And I think that there is something about seeing someone who is acting in a way that is outside the box, that triggers people and makes them a little resentful, and it reminds people that they are following the rules. They have made compromises in their life. They go to work on time. They wear the clothes and do the hair, all the things that they're supposed to. And when they're confronted with an example of someone breaking the rules, you have two choices. You can either say, wow, I guess the rules are allowed to be broken, or you say, fuck that guy. You either have to change your worldview of what's okay, or attack that person for threatening the worldview. So I understand, and but it's still, it's worth it. I think that's why I find it so important to create spaces and find people that support weirdness, is because it matters. It's helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not everybody's cup of tea, like you said. You have a friend who was like, I can't be around that negative energy that you sometimes attract because I just don't have the strength for that, or it's just not their preference, which is fine. But yeah, but that's part of how the weirdness and how we show up, weirdness how we present ourselves to the world. When it's authentic, that's the gold part of that. It's like, because I think there's a lot of people who want to be weird, quote unquote, for the shock factor of it, because they want to shake people up. It's not because that's just who their authentic self is. Their authentic self wants to shake people up, and they're going to do whatever it takes to make that happen. That's fine, if that's your approach. But I think there's something to be said for, because I think we all have a weird side to us that we sometimes we only really let that out when the blinds are closed and then the doors are locked. But other times, like being that authentic weird self out in the world feels good, and that's part of why we do it. We're not interested in people's I mean, if it elicits a positive response for people, that's great. That's like that's like the icing on the weird cake. But yeah, as long as that's authentic and we are showing up in that. I know that's when I was younger and trying to figure out who I knew there was something weird, and I didn't know what aspect of that was weird. So I would try on like weird jewelry or weird clothes, and it never, and some things felt okay, but it never really quite felt right, until I realized that my weirdness wasn't necessarily connected to fashion. It was connected to worldview. So I became that person who kind of looked normal in my dress, but had weird things to say and had weird things to share. And people would just be like, wow, I never looked at things that way. And I'm like, yeah, it's weird, isn't it? So, but,
I
but
remember you saying some very weird things to me when we first met. I was like, this dude's awesome.
dude, it's awesome. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and we keeping it weird ever since. So yeah, so it's important to kind of like, you know, examine the gamut of weirdness and be like, okay, so yeah, sometimes it's weird. We present as weird, and sometimes we speak. You know, we speak out our weirdness, and our beliefs are weird. And the same, you know, could have the same result. People are like, oh, I don't buy into that at all. That's weird. You should keep your mouth shut. And other people would be like, oh, that's an interesting way of looking at the world. Tell me more. So yeah, you get both positive and negative, no matter how we present the weird.
Can I share one of the memories of a weird conversation we had?
Oh, sure, sure. As long as it's not too
It
weird.
was many years ago, at least a decade ago, and we were talking about relationship to trees. And
Mm,
you told me a story about having this tree that you had a relationship with that was like at this being, right? That you kind of fell in love with, that you connected with in this very deep, meaningful, intimate way. And I had never met anybody that had a relationship with a tree like that. And I thought that was so weird and so awesome. And it opened me up actually to connect to this living being. They're everywhere. They're living beings. Trees
mm.
are beings. And it was yeah, it was wonderfully weird.
What a
Yeah, I dated a girl briefly,
A
whose
tree?
whose previous boyfriend or whose previous lover was a tree. And that
Oh,
oh,
was the first time I'd ever heard about that kind of thing. I heard of tree hugging hippies, but not, yeah, not
intimacy.
that level of tree loving of intimacy. And
yeah.
that
Wow.
was like, oh, that's weird, but cool.
Sure.
That's
Yeah. I think what we're speaking about too here is I feel like the people that we surround ourselves with, it's so important, right, to feel that we are spending time with people who celebrate our unique expression, our wild weirdness, our just many different facets of who we are. And the more that we allow ourselves to be expressed in that, then it will filter out the people that don't really support us, right? Like you were saying, Halcyon, I think that's really powerful to kind of have that moat, right? To be able to know that there's certain people that I want to spend time with that celebrate my weirdness, that are in support of my many layered expression of who I am, and then that helps to make it blossom and grow even more. And then it filters out the people that are not in support of that. And I know I personally want to spend time with people that are also wonderfully weird. And that's why I love the festival culture. It is a beautiful playground to express in different ways. And I also feel like this conversation of weirdness is an access point to our inherent nature to play, to be the innocent childlike expression of who we are as adults, right? That can tend to go, in the back. We forget how to play, and it's a vital part of our well-being to be able to find joy and play. And I think weirdness is an access point to play. We can learn so much from children and how weird they are.
Mm.
totally. Yeah, I think that, I mean, I'm imagining that each of you, you mentioned having interactions with littles over the weekend. I would imagine that you witnessed some weirdness because there is this authentic expression that is without bounds of cultural supposed tos. And it's in those places that culture starts to label it as weird, but it's really just honest, playful expression. And I love your example of Janus's tree story because exactly it's weirdness can be a hairstyle and it can be an idea, and each of these expressions that is outside of the lines helps other people, if they're open to it, to redraw the lines and to open up the circle of what is acceptable and what is acceptable and what is acceptable. And so that, I mean, even if someone is being, intentionally weird, I think that it's okay, for us to just be staying aware of, am I confining my worldview, my acceptable view, based on something outside myself. And when anybody is expressing an idea or an appearance or that is outside of that, we get to go, wait a minute, why do I not think this is okay? Why is this, something that is bringing up a little judgment in me?
Yeah, it can be it can be a challenge to first realize that you've got this weird part of yourself that isn't necessarily small. Like it's like, oh, there's actually, I'm really mostly weird. All right, so now how do I navigate this world? And it's, when you're only just a little weird, like let's say you've got there's all sorts of people that go to, like, let's say, fetish clubs or like kink clubs, and they don't necessarily walk around with wearing a bunch of kink wear, like out, to go like Trader Joe's or something, but they've got a big elaborate closet full of stuff, and they bring that out to like the clubs, and that's where they get to express that, or they get to express that at home. Or I've met people, and I think we've all met people unknowingly that will wear some, let's say, some kink stuff or piercings or whatever underneath their quote unquote mainstream clothes, and they're just out in the world being weird unknowingly to people. So, so it's important to, once you kind of suss out how weird how weird are you, be like, okay, so how do I, what feels a comfortable, good, and importantly safe way to express that. And sometimes it's just outward in people's faces, and other times it's, more reserved. But it's not a one size fits all, kind of thing. Whatever works for you.
Yeah, exactly. And knowing the safe places to be in the full weirdness. I know for me, one of the other things that I feel kind of weird about that I'll share here is kind of using weird voices sometimes and just wanting to kind of talk really funny and make up words and then go to the and it's actually really helpful for me because sometimes I get too serious.
Mm.
I really find there's moments where I'm like, spinning on a story or just getting really serious about a thing. And when I notice that I'm doing that, then I and it's so weird. It's very weird, and I love it because it then helps shake up some of the seriousness in my head, or just the density of whatever I'm going through. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of like one of my weird tools.
I love that so much. I love you so much. And see, just by you being you, you are an activist in the world. And I think that that's why this is such an interesting and fascinating topic, and is that when we start to give ourselves permission to express ourselves in these authentic ways, even if they are weird, they become the examples that people can lean into and find comfort in as their own impulses come up that we have judgment around. And those judgments, we didn't have them when we were kids. We developed these judgments based on cultural pressures, and we become unknowing agents of like enforcing these rules on people and ourselves, because I keep thinking about, this place with the Burning Man principles of radical self-expression and radical inclusion, and that it's the radical inclusion works in the way that everyone is welcome to express themselves in an authentic way. And if you're not willing to accept that, then you're not welcome. Like you will be excluded if you will not radically include people. So, meaning that I expect that in a place that is embracing 10 principles, or a party, a gathering of people that I know that to be in this culture, that if Betsy goes, blah, 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 that everyone is going to either applaud, smile, join her, or say that's fine and walk away without any judgment. And it's that understanding that I don't have to enjoy every expression, but if it's authentic, I respect it, and I'll hold your coat while you do whatever it is you're going to be doing.
Aw, thank you, Halcyon.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as, and with the asterisk or caveat that, the whole do no harm aspect of it, of your weird expression, is being adhered to and followed. There is I'm gonna thread the needle here with there was a festival that we used to go to down in Mexico when it was happening, and there was a group of people whose authentic expression was to fuck with other people. Like that was an active part of their how they would show up. And after a couple of years of that, the organizers were like, okay, I appreciate that authentic expression, but it was definitely weird. It had a weird factor to it, but you're harshing other people's vibe. You're harshing other people's mellow. Your weirdness is uncomfortable to the point of physically uncomfortable for a large enough amount of people that you guys are not allowed here anymore. And there's some people that were like, that's not cool, that's not radical acceptance, and this, that, and the other thing. It's like, well, this is not that. This is a private party, actually. So it's important to, when we are assessing our weirdness, you don't necessarily want to be overly concerned with how it is received in the world, but take some time to really drop in and be like, okay, is my weirdness, like, okay, if it's making somebody uncomfortable, but it's not necessarily harming them, good. We all kind of could use a little bit more discomfort in our lives. It kind of shakes things up a little bit. That said, as long as it's not threatening, like overtly threatening. If people are threatened by Betsy going, well, okay, that's a them problem. But if somebody's feeling threatened because I like to juggle machetes as I walk down the street, that's a normal thing to be uncomfortable with, and should be reassessed. If I'm a machete juggler, I should probably do that out in an empty field.
Well, one of the ways that Larry Harvey, the founder of Burning Man, he addressed this, because there were camps that at one point they were trying to push things so far to try to kind of push this edge, and they said, "Is it a gift?" Because gifting is another principle. If your radical self-expression, is not a gift, and then perhaps it shouldn't be there. So for example, if Betsy was going into people's tents, jumping on top of them and you making her funny noises, and they didn't want it, that is no longer a gift. That is now inflicting something upon someone, and yeah, that's we got to be aware of that. And I think that to a degree, if I'm going to wear fur pants someplace, I need to think about that too. Like if I wear fur pants and barge into someone's bar mitzvah, and the family is finding this to be disruptive of their ability to experience this in a beautiful way, I'm not an activist of love in that moment. I am disrupting. That's unacceptable. That is not a gift. And so there is limits for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I feel like that's such a good point, because we can find our own unique expression of our weirdness and stay mindful around the environment in which that we are sharing that. To be able to like run up to somebody and do something really weird, maybe really invasive, and it can have a negative impact. But to do it in a way that is just for my own self, then it's a very different thing. And one of the things I really love about where this conversation started, because of your viral video, Halcyon, is that the way that you shared that, hundreds and hundreds of people remixed that, right? It was your voice, and then they remixed it on Instagram over videos of themselves doing their own weird things, right? And it was not harmful to anyone. It was actually permission for people to be seen in their weirdness. And it was all kinds of things that people were doing. One girl was crocheting, one person had a ball gag. There's like all kinds of just different types of people doing weird things. And it was a really beautiful thing. It didn't impact anyone else. It actually was a celebration of weirdness and going, oh, okay, like we're all unique in our own ways.
Yeah.
And it's such a fun kind of time that we live in, with social media providing that space for the outside the box, creative, imaginative expressions of our unique selves.
Yeah. And to kind of elaborate on that point, because that was cool. That was my own experience with like watching that video and seeing the remix of people like doing that and doing things like, let's say, crocheting, which I think to us three, there's nothing weird about that. It's fine, it's cool. But then also realizing like there's a lot of people out there, for some reason, they look at crocheting as like weird. Like why is somebody knitting, crocheting? That's isn't that like an old person kind of thing? And it was like a young person being like, this is looked at as weird. I can do this, and that's fine if it's weird. And like we talked about before about the idea of permission engines. And I think that video turned into a massive permission engine for a lot of people to be like, hey, I am weird. That's worth celebrating. Thank you for noticing. It's like they really ran with that. That's why I think that's part of the large reason why it went viral, is because so many people have been looked at and labeled as weird for things that really aren't that weird. Or even if they are like super weird, it's still okay. It's still fine to show up in that, because that's their authentic expression. And so that's the reason why I think it resonated with so many people. And to see people like remixing it was a lot of fun. And yeah, that the idea of a permission engine, walking down the street with fur and pink hair. I remember early on in my Burning Man life, a bunch of us went to a mainstream, like we went for like a pirate ship outing. And so we were all wearing like crazy burner pirate gear, like pirate hats with fur pants. It's just like a whole mashup of weirdness. And we went to some bar, just a regular bar downtown, like about 20 of us. And it was definitely one of those record scratch moments when we walk in and the whole place is like, who are these weirdos? Who are these people? But there were two girls who came up and were just fascinated, and they were asking us all sorts of questions, and it was fun. They were definitely like, wow, I never thought that, I thought you guys did that thing elsewhere. The fact that you're here is wild and cool and da da da. And I ended up seeing them at a Burning Man function several months later, because this was their introduction to that, and they jumped into it. It's almost like they've been looking for that for a while, or even if they were looking for it without knowing they were looking for it, and then they found their people and just like went with it. And so that was a really heartwarming moment to see them at a function like several months down the road and be like, oh, I remember when they first laid eyes on it. And it meant something to them, and it changed their world, frankly. So yeah, with, like you said, with great opportunity comes great opportunity comes great responsibility. So knowing that we are potentially granting somebody the permission to be weird themselves by us being weird is pretty cool, in my opinion.
Yeah, that my affirmation is, I embrace my weirdness today. I embrace the wild, weird nature of my unique expression in the world. If you think about it, our fingertips are all different. There's billions of people in the world, and every single fingerprint is different. And that is just such a beautiful reminder that we are unique and we're weird. you know it's this like balance of belonging, but also recognizing that we're all unique in our own ways.
Yeah, and it takes a little bit of time, I think, to go from a a subconscious kind of being held by a cultural judgment, and then to be confronted, and then slowly to recognize, oh, maybe I have weirdness in me that I should let out. It can be a process. I remember meeting someone at a party who said, they pulled me aside and go, this is so great meeting you, because 10 years ago I saw a picture of you on someone's fridge dressed all in pink, and my thought was, who the fuck is this guy? And then 5 years later, I learned more about Burning Man, and I saw another picture of you, and I said, who is this guy? And so then now to meet you is like, oh, it's like, so this person had to go through this journey. Like initially they had an anger response. And over time, recognize, oh, that's not me. That there's something programming that is making me, resistant to this.
Yeah, I feel like the spark that comes up for me around that is around watching our own judgment. And judgment is a part of being human. It's a part of our ego structure. And it can also be very illuminating to the stories that we create within our own self, right? If I'm judging someone outwardly from that's like bringing something up for me that brings up anger or total like negative judgment, I'm the one that's carrying that. I'm feeling the like, the tightness, the like, and it can spiral into negative thought patterns, right? And so to be able to self reflect on that and start to become more aware of my own inner judgment that is not healthy for me and my own personal system, then to be able to shift out of that into just witnessing somebody, right? It comes back to the gene keys. That is one of the gene keys. I think it might be 52 or 54, somewhere in there, the shadow element of judgment. And it can be very helpful. It's kind of like a signpost around how do I want to be feeling it within my own system, my own body, to be able to see the outward expression of the world reflected back at me. And I know personally, the more that I've gotten to a place of celebrating other people's weirdness or uniqueness, then that helps me to feel much more centered, much more free, much more grateful, much more present, just letting go of the like, ugh, I can't believe that person did that, or why is that person doing that? And, it's uncomfortable, right, to be in a negative judgment of other people. That's my own personal experience, right? I'm sure you guys have felt that too. You're at a gathering or you're out somewhere, you get hooked on all of that, like, oh, they shouldn't do that, or they should do that. And it's just like you could even see my face if you're watching this on YouTube, like I'm frowning when I'm in judgment. My shoulders start rolling forward. I feel tight and icky. I have this little wrinkle on my forehead, and I don't want to be in that place. I want to feel my lips turned up. I want to feel wide-eyed, my heart open. And so I feel like witnessing other people's weirdness from a joyful, celebratory place can actually be very healing for and wonderful for our own
Yeah.
self.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly.
It's definitely a rich place for our growth to be aware of our judgments, and I think that the rich place is like, do I really have an issue with this thing? Or at some point, did I learn that this was cool and that wasn't cool? And so I am, without even realizing it, I am becoming an agent of the status quo and trying and finding myself regurgitating a judgment. Now, it's possible someone is doing something where you're like, ooh, they are singing in a way that's hurting my ears. But more likely, you're saying, when I was on grade school, the cool kids teased somebody who did something like that. So I have an association that this thing isn't cool. And so I'm going to also think it's not cool. And I say that, like, I can look back at times in my life when I was judgmental to somebody, or I didn't think they were cool. And I think that fueled so much of my fear of being uncool for so many years of my life. And even today, I don't live in a place of like absolute self-confidence of all my weirdness. I mean, one of the reasons why I cultivate a practice of weirdness is because it's a practice. And there are times when I feel really rattled when somebody looks at me and rolls their eyes. It doesn't take much to really go like, wait, am I not? And I think that's that community and support and finding others that are going to respect and appreciate. There's something that I think about, which is that, the world, I don't know, is it Buckminster Fuller, I think, or Mark Twain or someone good that said, we can't solve the problems of the world with the thinking that got us here. And maybe it was Einstein. I don't know. Somebody really smart said that idea. And so that if we are going to figure out solutions to what's going on this planet, it has to come through weird thinkers. It has to come through people who are willing to have the ideas, live the way, express themselves in ways that the cultural pressures are going to say, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing that. And so even if it's something as silly as an outfit, the more that we can train ourselves to allow our authentic expressions to come out, allow our weirdness to be, I think it's a critical part of the healing of our planet.
That contributes to evolution. like Thomas Edison was such a weirdo.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah.
But he contributed greatly to the evolution of our experience. You know, it's that we have light because of his out of the box thinking.
Yeah. And we are, I don't think it's hyperbole to say, but we're getting to a critical point in our human evolution that it's going to take, we're going to have to get weird in order to continue to thrive as a human race on this planet. Like, we're going to have to get into some weird thinking, and in order to keep things going, because what we're doing is not working. I think it's all getting pretty clear. We're getting pretty clear about that, and there's certainly some people who are in denial of that and being like, no, we must maintain the status quo. It's fine. It's like, keep doing what we are doing. And yeah, that's not going to cut it. So so we're going to have to get weird as a species in order
And
to
wonderfully weird.
wonderfully
Wonderfully
weird. Yes,
weird.
some wonderfully open weird spaces. And I think it's also worth saying, to bring it back down to a personal level, there is nothing wrong, and like, quote unquote wrong, with kind of keeping our weirdness to ourselves, if that's what feels appropriate. By all means. I prefer, I can go out in suit and tie, and I like to wear, women's clothing at home or whatever. If that's my thing, and it brings up too much for me, or brings up the wrong kind of attention for me to go out wearing the things that I really enjoy wearing, there's nothing wrong with being weird in a safe space. If you are comfortable taking it out into the world, by all means, that is awesome, and that should be celebrated. But if it feels better to kind of like keep this container of weirdness to yourself, and maybe a handful of loved ones, or again, no one at all, that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no right way to be weird. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's important to acknowledge that.
Self
And
love.
and I think that's another thing that it can. There's no weirdness is being authentic. And so if your life looks pretty mundane and you crochet and live a life that looks not weird by the definition of somebody who is doing some crazy thing, you're not doing anything wrong. As long as you are being genuine in who you are, the point is to be driven by your internal truth. And if that is, we embrace weirdness because we don't want our culture to pressure us from the outside. I remember, after people often, when they go into Burning Man, they'll say, like, for the first time, like, well, where can I buy Burning Man clothes? And it's like, no, you're missing the point. There's not a correct way to look weird for Burning Man. You're allowed to do whatever you want, and it can take some. If your authentic self is a suit and tie, and you feel like, man, this is my power place, I feel totally me, there's nothing wrong with leaving the pink fur pants to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes being weird might mean staying home all the time.
Right.
That's totally fine too. Yeah, we find our own authentic expression of who we are, and really, I think what we're talking about is letting go of our self-judgment.
Mm.
I think we were talking about, the title of this is a proud weirdo. I'm proud to be weird in my own way, whatever that is. That's just saying that we're unique in who we are, and I love who I am in my weirdness, whether that is outwardly expressed wearing pink fur pants and speaking gibberish out in public or on this podcast, or getting really quiet and not talking to anyone for a really long time. That's weird too, and that's totally fine to be able to come back to that place of loving ourselves and loving each other for our uniqueness. We need more love in the world. We need more love and acceptance of each other, and that really creates a safety of our nervous systems. It's such a beautiful gift that we can give each other.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and the weirdness is a reflection of its environment, so to speak. So, like, for example, if you show up in wearing your tennis whites at a goth club, you're the weird person. there. Like that's not, because everybody else is wearing the black and the latex and the leather and all that, and you're showing up wearing like a weird Wimbledon outfits. Like that makes you the weird one, whereas like that outfit was going to be perceived pretty normal at a lot of different places. So it's all in the eye of the beholder. So this thing that, I don't want to be perceived as weird. It's like, or I am weird, but I don't know how I feel about being weird. It's like, it's all it's all in the eye of the beholder. And it all depends on where you hang out, essentially. So yeah. So I think on a personal level, I think we've all three have had like, we've either like explicitly mention it, like when it comes to relationships, for example. I think it's kind of understood, like somebody, we're going to get into a relationship with somebody, then it's like, okay, just so you know, it's going to get weird over here. If you're going to be hanging out with me, if we're going to hang out together, it's going to get weird at some point. And kind of loving that or getting excited by that, that's where the it's a lot of fun on the weird side. It definitely sparks a lot of great conversations. It sparks a lot of like, I'm always open to get my worldview kind of expanded. And just because frankly, because it's fun. It's fun to be weird. It's fun to be around weird people for me. So I think it's there's a lot of goodness to be found there.
Well, it's fun, but it is also can be scary. If you follow the rules of the culture, there's no vulnerability. You know what people considers acceptable, and if you stay in the box, it is a safe place. That being said, if you can find a community or the strength in yourself for self-love and to say, I'm going to figure out what my weird is and I'm going to express it in the world, it is super scary, and it is the most exciting journey that a human being can have. And that's why we got to support each other when we do that.
Absolutely. Yes, 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 yes. I love how weird you guys are. Thank you for this conversation.
Thank you.
So, what you guys want to close it up with something weird? What's your closing sparks?
I want to close with just some of the thoughts upon witnessing the comments from this video as it went viral, and all these people and how they responded to this kind of proud weirdness, and that I find it so encouraging that there's so many people out there that want to be the supporters of weird and want to be the expressors of weird. And that knowing that, I think we can go through the world with that feeling that we're not so alone. It's so easy to listen to the news and hear things on the internet and maybe pass by a neighbor, and suddenly you start to think like, holy crap, this is a cold, dark, judging world, and I got to keep my weirdness in. But the opposite is also true. This world is filled with wonderful weirdos. And when we are those weirdos, we help each one of us to shine a little brighter.
Yeah. I feel that we've touched on this before in several episodes, but I feel it's worth repeating and getting into that. When we bring our weirdness out into the world, it's more fun to do it together. It's more fun to be in community. We can be weird by ourselves, but to be weird with other people who are weird like us is so fun. It feels so good. That's why things like, Burning Man is such a fantastic thing to experience, or just festival, whatever your weird thing is. There's a whole bunch of other people out there who are weird in the very similar ways. And so, so it's good to take our weirdness on the road and get weird out in the world. It's a lot of fun out there, especially in social media. Internet's great for finding those like-minded weirdos to hang out with.
Yes.
So yeah.
So true. Yeah. My closing spark is very much about how we can snap ourselves out of the hamster wheel or the like neural pathways that are just like running on repeat, and how weirdness or thinking differently or doing things differently can actually like shake things up, because that is what is really helpful for us to continue to shift perspectives. And so, finding different ways every day and new ways to find a little thread of something that's going to shift. How can I do things differently? How can I be a little more expressed today? How can I maybe be a little weirder in my dress or my vocabulary, or just to kind of support the evolution and growth of who we are and who we're becoming. I think that that's my closing spark, and also just want to highlight something that you said, Yanis, about doing things differently to continue to evolve as a species on this planet. We've got to start doing things differently, and there's a lot of wonderful new inventions and new things that are coming out that are helping us to evolve, thinking outside the box to create new systems, new structures, and allowing our unique expression to contribute to this amazing time that we're in on this beautiful planet.
Well said. Well
Yeah.
said.
I want to add a additional, it's not so much a spark, but a correction. It was Einstein that said that quote. So if you're getting ready to write me an email, it was Einstein that said that quote that I said earlier about we can't solve the problems with the same thinking that we used to create them. And with that new thinking, I would love for us to share how we can find us in the world. Betsy, how can people find you? And what are you doing in the world?
I love getting to help people shift their programs and thinking with my project called Power Affirmation. You can find it at poweraffirmation.com. Started with a journal that helps to reprogram limiting beliefs and get in touch with the belief systems that we have, using affirmations and gratitude, self-reflection. I also have some other wonderful products that go along with the Power Affirmation project. We plant trees with Eden Reforestation. And I also work with clients one-on-one doing mind, body, spirit transformation with body work and sound healing and intuitive coaching. So you can find me on my website as well, finklehoo.com.
Beautiful.
Hmm. Yeah, and many testimonial for your Power Affirmations project. My partner has dove into that over the last year, and I've witnessed the results of it. It has changed her life and has therefore changed my life, all for the better. It has been a world shift, and in no small part due to your Power Affirmations project. So I want to thank you for that. It's been,
Thank you.
yeah,
Awesome.
if people are unfamiliar, they should definitely check it out. So also worth checking out is my offering. I have a nutritional supplement company called NuWorld Nutritionals, spelled NuWorldNutritionals.com. And we have some nutritional supplements that are designed to elevate your state of mind, improve your state of mind, help deal with symptoms of anxiety, depression, ADHD, helps your focus, your memory, your learning, just puts you in a positive mental attitude to get through your day and your life. It's a really good product, getting a lot of good results for a lot of people. So check it out, NuWorldNutritionals.com. You can use the code SPARKED for 10% off of all of our products.
And I'd like to endorse your product and say that if you are showing and working on the courage in your life to have to try new things and express your weirdness, this product is incredible at helping with your neuroplasticity. So you can, really, it benefits the new grooves in your brain. And if you're going to put out the courage to make changes, his product helps you to stick with those changes and change your life. And if you're looking for me online, I'm at johnstin.com. And one of the practices that I do that I would like to invite you to is I have a morning 9 a.m. Pacific time live broadcast. And one of the purposes is to find this supportive community of pro weirdness and gratitude and acceptance and strengthen one another, kind of like a little bullpen at the beginning of the day to rub each other's shoulders and recognize that there is so many of us out there. So as we go into the world, we can just remember that we're not alone. So you can join me any day at 9 a.m. and johnstin.com will get you there and to other projects of mine as well. And before we go off and spread our weirdness in the world, can you anchor us with some affirmations, Betsy?
Yes, I would be happy to close us out with an affirmation. So, welcome to close your eyes, place your hands on your body and your heart, your belly, wherever feels good to you, and just repeat after me. I embrace my unique expression in the world. I embrace my unique expression in the world. I embrace my unique expression in the world. I am wonderfully weird. I am wonderfully weird. I am wonderfully weird. I love who I am. I love who I am. And I love other people for being so wonderfully weird too. I love who I am. And I love other people for the wonderful weirdness of who they are. Yes, 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 yes. Let's keep celebrating ourselves. Let's keep celebrating each other. Let's keep thinking outside the box. Keep coming back into that deep place of self-love and acceptance for being a proud weirdo. Love you guys.
Thank you, Betsy. Stay spark, people.